Okay, so I'm assuming everyone can hear me. We'll start with that question. We all good? You can hear my voice? Okay, cool. So today should be relatively short. I'm going to start with what I need to talk about for next week before I get any further and forget about it. So I'm going to apologize to begin with for what I'm going to have to talk about for next semester or next week, but I'm also apologizing if I sound really weird. I broke a tooth, took a pretty big chunk out of it, so I'm somewhere between in pain and not in pain and full of painkillers and not full of painkillers. So life is pretty good. But I have a dentist appointment during our class on Tuesday, which means, of course, I can't be here. So you guys have an option. I can pre-record the lecture and put it up for you guys, and you guys can watch it at your leisure. Or I can cram everything from Tuesday into Thursday, which should work because generally what we would do on Tuesday would be like the playing and constructive criticism and stuff for the Mario levels. But since we're not having to do that physically, we can do it through the discussion board. I should have enough time to kind of take what I was going to teach on Tuesday and teach it on Thursday as well as what we were going to learn on Thursday. So it's up to you guys. Whether you want me to pre-record it and you guys do watch the lecture on Tuesday, and of course we can come back in and y'all will have more than enough time to ask me questions or be like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about on Thursday, because next week is when we get into starting coding. So, and I know that's a scary one for y'all, for a lot of y'all. And like I said, if I pre-record it and you're like, literally that made no sense to me, I can 100% go over everything on Thursday again. Okay, so I will pre-record it, and for those of you who still, you come in on Thursday and you're like, I watched the video, but I don't know what's happening, we'll go over everything again. So, okay, so I'll pre-record it. And I'll post it probably, I don't know. I'll try and get it done tonight or tomorrow. The problem is right now, because I broke the front tooth, so every time I talk, I put air through that tooth, and it's, it's fun. So, smaller amounts of talking is better for me, even though you guys have only had me, some of you have had me for more, but, y'all have probably all figured out that I like to talk a lot. So, okay, so I will pre-record it, I will let you know when that goes up, so that you guys can watch it at your leisure, and that's how that's going to happen. So, most of y'all did really good on your quizzes. Those of you who didn't, it's because things were slightly, I guess, tricky. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put trick questions on quizzes. I really don't. And for those of you who panicked because you saw that and were like, wait a minute, this looks like a trick question. It wasn't. It's never meant to be a trick question. All of my quizzes are meant to be very straightforward answers because I hate trick questions. So, there's that. So, congratulations. Most of y'all did very good, even those of y'all who didn't do so great. You didn't miss a lot, and to be honest, your quizzes aren't a huge chunk of your grades, so it's not the worst thing in the world. Don't worry too much about your grades on quizzes. Okay, so with that said, are there any questions about using Unity, about things that you've maybe noticed between Tuesday's class and today? I can reopen the quiz. So just remind me and I'll reopen the quiz after class for those of y'all who managed to forget to take it. I don't mind doing that because we're not discussing the questions, so it's not like... And this first, again, my quizzes are all open notes, open everything. So, yeah, you're free to do that. So I will reopen the quiz after class. But are there any questions about using Unity, things that you guys have run into that you're like, I really don't understand what's happening? Is my documentation okay in the modules for y'all? So it shouldn't be that the file is too big. There's possibly, because I mean, I literally zip files that are in the 100 gigabyte size range, so this doesn't get anywhere near that. Um, what the problem may be is that there may be a folder somewhere down the line that is like, has, the file extension is too long, so it's like folder slash folder slash folder slash folder slash folder slash folder slash folder. One of the workarounds is to try and copy it to a different drive or to like a flash drive and then zip it on the flash drive. For whatever reason, that seems to work. Or find the folder that's a problem. If that is still a problem for y'all, let me know and I'll just have you send me a screenshot of your structure, and that's good enough for that. Yeah. And if it's happening with the Mario one, we'll deal with that when we get to it. Yeah, there's no such thing as anything that's too big to zip. It has to do with Windows, especially Windows, and having issues with, like, slashes. Literally, that's all this assignment is for. This assignment is just for teaching you guys how to kind of put assets into the thing. We'll go through more, we'll talk about more. This is just getting you guys used to placing and moving things around the window. It's not meant to be anything like, oh, now all of a sudden I'm throwing you in to code everything and this and that and t'other. One of the questions that I did get was somebody asked, how do you make an empty object? Which are what these are. And that's going to be really easy. You're going to come up to game object and you'll go create empty or control shift N. 100% I'm all about you guys learning the hotkeys, but I will never force you to learn the hotkeys because that's not for everybody. But you're just going to create an empty, and that will create an empty over here. You can rename it up here in the inspector, or if you right click, you should be able to find a rename button. So you can name it whatever you want. And this is really great to put, like, say you have a bunch of, well, this is a really good example, like you have a bunch of these example bricks that are here, and so maybe let's say we have one that's like floating out over here. All you gotta do is take this guy with your left mouse, click him, hold him, and drag him into the group. And you can literally, those of you again who have had 3ds Max or Maya, it's just a parent-child relationship. That's all it is. So it's literally that this guy is the master and moves everybody, but you can also select any of the individual. If you guys are looking up tutorials or looking up things that were written a while back, 5 years thereabouts, because some of those are still really good tutorials, they may also use the phrase master-slave, but that's definitely fallen out of favor as far as terminology goes for that relationship. Now it's parent-child pretty much always. But just so that you guys know that terminology, that's what they're meaning. I will always use parent-child or top and bottom, but it will generally be parent-child. So that's kind of how you do that. I did have somebody asked another question. So when you looked in here, you have this position and rotation and scale stuff, and you're going to notice that there is nothing in the Z. Sometimes when you just drag something in, it'll put some sort of random number in the Z. So the way that, and this is going to be different than the way that Maya works and the way I think Max works. I haven't used Max in about a year, so I can't quite tell you for sure. But Maya for sure. So inside of Unity, X is your horizontal, especially for, X is your horizontal, which 100% makes sense. It's that way for everybody. The issue comes to Y and Z. And this is something that you get across like every game engine, every 3D modeling software, everything, is which one of those is up and down and which one of those is depth. So inside of Unity, up and down is the y-axis, and like front and back, so depth, is the z-axis. So when you're in 2D, this number can literally be any number and it won't take anything into consideration, because it basically drops the z value completely and says, yeah, that doesn't exist. So that's something else to know. There were like the issues. Somebody had an issue with the coins. If the coins aren't working, I've added in, and so they'll work inside of your actual like Unity thing, but maybe they won't work when you build it. I've added into your modules, there's a fixing the coin in the build that'll walk you through how to fix it. I thought I'd fixed it. Apparently it decided not to be fixed, so that's pretty common inside of game development in general. So you have to fly with bug fixes all the time. Okay, so were there any other questions about Unity? So one of the other fun things to look at are these guys up here that say center and local. So for those of you who pull something in from like Max or Maya, you may have changed where the pivot point is to like the bottom corner or the bottom center or I don't know, some random place. This is where you change all that. So center means that this pivot will always be at the center, so at that point. But say we set the pivot to this bottom like left corner. If you switch this over from center to pivot, it's not going to work here because we don't have that, but it'll move that pivot down to that corner for you. So that's what that button is for. And then local versus global. You won't really see that as much inside of here, but when you get to 3D, it's a much bigger deal. Local will basically take the rotation to itself or the move to itself, whereas global will do it on a full scale. Again, those of you who have had Max or Maya, those are probably at least terms that you maybe recognize. Yeah. And if you have it on global, it'll let you use a magnet tool, which is your snap tool. So, yeah. Okay, so let's, yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah, so send Vicky an email and send me an email. Just so that we know. I'll excuse any assignments that you don't turn in, and you can turn them in at a later time, because like it's 100% out of my hands. Citrix is a strange beast, but oh, Billy. So yeah, you can send it to Billy and you can send it to me. You don't have to send it to Vicky then, because Billy's. Those that don't know, if you see William Vandenberg, that's the head of 3D animation, so that's Billy. And then Vicky is the head of the game development, kind of, whatever they're called, departments. So, emailing one or the other works. Yeah, yeah. So just, yeah, if you guys are having issues with Citrix or having issues with any of your technology stuff, 100% let me know. Like, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, my graphics card went out. Email me, let me know, and I will 100% work with you so that, you don't have to worry too much about deadlines and due dates for me. Yeah, Citrix is pretty new, so they're definitely still getting a hang of what it can and can't do and whether it's actually working for everybody. Yeah. Yeah. The tutors also should maybe be able to help you. So if you don't belong to the tutor group, let me grab the invite link for y'all. Edit invite link. Never generate new link. Copy. So yeah, if you guys don't have this Discord yet. So our tutors use Zoom. They do use Zoom, but we also have a Discord server where you can kind of pop in and ask questions and or find their schedules and who's currently available for help and things like that. If you want to go there before like actually jumping into their Zooms. So 100% join the server. It's a great place. It has some of your professors, a good chunk of the professors are there too, but it's a good place to be. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay. So, the main thing that I wanted to show you guys how to do today is how to actually build a level. Or, like, create an executable. Because you've been building a level. We also call building because when you make something into something that can be playable, we call it build. So let's say that this is my finished level. Everything is great. This is exactly how I want it to look. It plays when I press the play button. Things are happening. Everything is great. So how do you get a Unity project from Unity into something that you can like share with your friends to play or put online? There's a page inside of your modules and it's called Building an Executable, and it will walk you through every step and it has some extra information for you. But the big one that you're going to do is you'll go to File, and there's these two options. There's Build Settings and Build and Run. And they work similar but differently. My suggestion is always to use Build Settings for your first build, and then you can use Build and Run afterwards. So if you click Build Settings, you'll get this thing right here. So the first thing you're going to notice is it says Scenes in Build, and there's absolutely nothing in here. This means if we try to build the project, nothing's going to happen. You won't see anything at all. So what you have to do is you have to add your scenes. And it's really easy. You can either click Add Open Scene if you're already and you only have one scene, but say you want to like include 4 scenes and they've got transitions between them and everything, which I haven't shown you guys how to do. I will show you how to do because part of your 2D game, you will have to have like a start page, which then transitions to your introduction or your main scene, but you also have to have credit scenes, so you're going to be flopping back and forth. But so to do that, all you do is you can come to your scenes folder and you can grab whatever you want and drag it into this. So like I've got the template right now, so I can just put it there. And if say you decided, oh, I don't want this actually in here, you can unclick it. You can also remove selection if you right click it. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But basically, and then you're going to have this number over here. You, at this point, don't need to worry too much about that. That's just the build order. That's saying, hey, this is the order of things that are happening. And that's really helpful when you get to scene transitions because you can, this number is easier to access than like the name of your scene. So you can say, hey, from 0, I want you to go to 4, I want you to go to 3, I want you to go wherever you want it to go, or just add 1 to this number to go to the next scene. So that's all that number means. But once you're here, there's a bunch of options, as you can see. Well, there's actually more options than this, but these are the ones that I have. So for this class, we will probably generally be building either a PC, Mac, Linux standalone, or WebGL build. And PC, Mac, those are the ones that are like your normal kind of games that play on your desktop, on your PC, without you having to access the internet. WebGL builds are HTML5. They're basically, it's code that's wrapped so that it works with HTML5 to play in like a web browser. And this is really great if you want to put it up on itch.io and want people to actually play it inside the browser. Browser games are becoming a lot more popular. They fell way out of fashion for a really long time, but yeah, my little nerd heart is so happy that browser games are back because I love browser games. It makes life nice. So once you're here and you have this kind of PC, Mac, Linux standalone thing, you're going to see that there's a bunch of options here. And because I'm on a Windows machine, it will only let me do Windows. Architecture, you can say whether you want to do 64 or not. Always stick to 64 if you can. You don't need to do a server build because you're not accessing a server. You don't need to copy. Yeah, I mean, Flash is basically, nobody supports it anymore. So HTML5 has become a lot more popular because of that, because you can do everything that you could do in Flash inside of HTML5. There's actually, those of you who are coders, a decent amount of money in retrograding and upgrading old Flash applications to use HTML5 or other Java formats to be used on the web. Yeah, that's a good thing. Generally, in general, for those of y'all that are coders, learning an older language that is maybe obsolete is not the worst thing in the world. One of my first jobs, and this was before I was a programmer, I had a summer job translating Fortran to English that could then be done into, like, I don't know what they ended up putting in, whether they put it in Java or C++, but basically I took Fortran because I knew Fortran. Because I'm the kind of nerd that if there was a book on it, I read it, even if I didn't understand it. So I'd read a book on Fortran, and so I got hired to do it. It was really good money, too. Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of things that are going from Fortran. Fortran and Cobalt are the two that are big right now that are having to be translated because systems finally don't, like, understand those at all. So you don't need a Visual Studio solution. You don't need to put development build. It can actually cause more problems than it's worth to have that. And then compression method, you can leave it as default. You don't need to know about that. And then the other place that I want to show you is that if you click player settings, this is where you can say, hey, my resolution, this is what I want my resolution to be. This is what I want. When it comes to your resolution, always tell it to have windowed mode, especially for things that you're not sure whether they work 100% or not. Windowed mode is going to be your best friend. And you can change this over, or you can keep full screen windowed. Those of you who don't know how to get out of, like, a full screen window program that literally won't let you exit out of it, you can press the window key, or you can alt tab to a different screen, or window and arrow key, or there's a few different ways. But basically, you can choose whatever you want here. If we go to windowed, you're going to see that it's default set to 1024 by 768. That may or may not be what you want. Make sure to check what you've done inside your game so that you match those dimensions. And then even further, depending upon, supported aspect ratios, you can tell it what you actually support. So most modern computers are working on a 16 by 9 or a 16 by 10. 4 to 3 and 5 to 4 are better for, like, old school type of games if that's what you're wanting. But on top of that, this player setting area is also where you change your company name. So if you want to put your name here, or Northwest Vista, you can put it there. You can change the product name. So this is when you actually pop your build, like, what it'll say in this top corner, where, like, usually it's like Google or Mario Level Editor _ Unity or whatever it happens to be. Version, we'll talk about how you should number versions once we get closer to finishing our 2D game, because there is kind of, depending on the company, depends on how they do it, but there is a vague structure to how they actually say that you should do that. So default icon, that's for your, like, toolbar. So if you go down to your taskbar, which I realize I've got cut off so you guys can't actually see me doing that. If you go down to your taskbar and you've got all these, like, really cool icons down here, if you want to add in a cool icon for your game, that's where you can put an icon. You can change your cursor over, so maybe you want it to be a hand, or you want it to be a fancy arrow, or you've got a drawing game so you want it to be a pencil. Like, that's where you would change your cursor. And the cursor hotspot, that's where the tip of your cursor is. So 0, 0 is always the top left corner for Unity. Again, that changes depending on what kind of... Okay, so 0, 0 is when you're working in a 2D plane. When you're working on, like, your canvas, when it comes to, like, your images and everything, 0, 0 is there. Otherwise, 0, 0 in their 3D plane is, like, smack in the middle of everything. So that's where that gets a little confusing. But so your cursor, generally when you draw cursors, you always want to point them up to this top left corner. And there's a few other things in here. Resizable window if you want your player to be able to resize it, if you want it to capture the screen, if you want it to be visible in the background, all that kind of stuff. The splash image, whenever you have a Unity project and you're using the free version of Unity, which we all are, the first thing that pops up is kind of the Unity logo, but you can also put your own logo there. So you can put your own logo kind of inside of here. Yeah, and you can change the background image. There's other settings which you guys shouldn't have to mess with. A lot of them have to do with Mac and stack tracing, which none of y'all need to worry about. So once you've kind of set everything up and you say, yeah, I want this scene, well, WebGL is, like you can see, it's got a lot less. You just click it and it does it. But so standalone, once we've got all this done, we say, hey, either we want to build it, which means it'll build it and kind of close it, or we want to build and run, which means that once we build it, it will run the program to make sure that it's working correctly. So the first thing it'll do, it'll open up your folders. Don't save it inside of here. Like, that can get a little problematic. So I always save builds if I can into a folder on the desktop, so you can create a new folder and call it Mario build. Or I guess, okay, there we go. So select, and then it'll start building. As you're gonna see, building isn't always fast. Sometimes it is ridiculously slow, especially the first build that you ever make, because basically once you build any subsequent builds, it looks to see what's changed between the first build and the newer build, and it only updates those files. So it's smart like that, which is great. It used to have to rebuild absolutely everything. And you'll find with your 2D games, they might be kind of slow, but they're not going to be like slow. Whereas your 3D games, there's a good possibility that some of y'all will build for hours on end. So always make sure that you build. Okay, so see, we did build and run. So we now have our character and he can move. And everything works. So what does it actually look like inside of the folder? If I can figure out where I put it, there we go. So inside your folder, you have these things. All of these are important to send to me. So literally when you're zipping something, zip this folder. So zip, like, go to your desktop and zip this folder. That's because I need everything that's inside of here. I cannot reiterate that enough. If it sounds like I'm being like really picky or really like pointed on that, it's because I've had last year where they just sent me the exe. That doesn't work. The exe, yes, you click the exe to play the game, but the exe calls all this information that are in these two folders. And then these two are, this one is like how to build the Unity player so that it builds nicely. And then this one is if something goes really wrong, your computer doesn't crap the bed. Like, that's what those are for. So this one. So I need all of these guys. But if you're like saying, hey friends, you want to try this out? Zip all of this together, tell them to click on the thing that says Super Mario EXE. So like right now, if we click it, it's going to bring it back up. So for me, you just need to zip all of this together. I mean, okay, so for your presentation, you're going to zip all of this together. You're going to also need to take a picture of yourself, or take a screen record of you guys playing your levels so that we know what you're actually doing. And for like turning it into Mimi, I need your entire, so wherever I have this whole thing hidden, I need everything. Because I want to be able to go through all of these. And yeah, I could reverse engineer it and go from your exe, but that is so much time and effort that I don't want to put into it. So don't make it harder on me, or I'll make your grade very hard. Yeah. Yeah. So are there any questions about building? Or compiling? Those of you who are coders will probably use the word compiling. It's the same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to pull the modules up so that you can see kind of what I'm talking about. When we're talking about the fixing the coins in the build, again, it'll work inside of Unity, inside of what we call the editor, but it may not work inside of the actual, like, build, so when you're playing it on your desktop. So if it's not, just come in here, in the editor, the coins, blah, 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 download the script. If you click on the script and it doesn't exist, or it's like, you don't have access to that, I have no idea why. But one, it should already be in your files, but two, if it's not, come to pages, or not pages, come to files, and you can find it. So, like if we open files, there's a lot in here, but you'll just go to coin disappear and you'll grab it. And then this will walk you through how to like go into your prefabs and how to do everything. So, and that's how that'll fix that. And if your coins don't work, it's not the end of the world. Don't stress too much about this. The whole point of this assignment is just to get you guys used to kind of understanding how to get around inside of Unity. Like y'all said, you don't really know how to do much other than to put assets into the screen, and that's all this assignment is for. That's all this assignment is for. It's just to get you guys used to using it. A lot of times, depending on the professor, this is like only a 1-day thing, and I don't like that. When I took this class, I didn't like that. I wanted more time to be able to like build a level that I was actually proud of. So I give you guys more time. So don't worry too much about it. It's fine. So, like I said, for me, this thing that says Mario level, you'll click that. So zip your Unity project. So zip the whole thing together for me and turn it in through Canvas. Canvas may take forever to turn it into me. Just let you know. So you may be sitting on Canvas and it's like, okay, have you submitted? No? Okay. Have you submitted? No? Okay. And mind you, this is a very small file. So give yourself time when it comes to submitting these things. Don't wait until 10 minutes before it's due to try and submit it to me. It won't get in on time. That's one of the reasons why I have leeway for you guys to be able to turn things in, is because I know building takes forever. Another option, if everything goes awry and it's just not working, is you putting your build or putting in whatever you've done to like Google Drive and just linking me to your Google Drive. That works too. If that's a better option for you, just let me know. So yeah, so once you have the whole Unity project in to me in this one right here, you're going to go and you're going to create a build. And all that information is under here, Mario presentations and constructive criticism. So attach your standalone builds, or a link to where you have them hosted like Google Drive, Dropbox, or itch.io, or link the web build of the game, like on itch.io. Post a screenshot of your level and explain what you were trying to do, and then screen record with either internal software or even your cell phone, or whatever's going to work for you while you play your video. My preferred way to do this is for you guys to put them up on YouTube. Those of you who are afraid, oh no, YouTube, that means everybody can see them, go ahead and make them unlisted, because that means that only if you give out the link can people see them. If you don't care, 100% make it public, but otherwise unlisted is the way to go. That makes it easier because nobody has to download a video, because videos are even bigger than the Unity projects. So after that, you're going to play each other's games and you're going to write a critique on it. And I don't mean this is good or this sucks. Criticism is always kind of a mix of positive and negative. So maybe this thing is flawless, but you managed to notice like one little pixel was out. You want to say that. You want to be like, oh my god, I love this game. I really liked the way that you did X, Y, or Z, but I found this. So you should always kind of mix, because if you only ever praise somebody, they don't know where their downfalls are. And in the same way, if you only ever like nitpick somebody and tell them that everything they do is bad, they're never going to know what they're doing is right, and so they're going to get more and more discouraged. So always make sure to kind of mix it together. I do want to know, hey, I thought this level was too hard, or oh, I thought this level was too easy, because, and that's subjective, person to person, but you're going to find as game developers that you have to figure out how to build your game in such a way that both, that like the median, so the middle road people are happy with it. Unless you're picking like a niche genre and doing something like Cuphead, which was made for like hardcore gamers. And even that is only sometimes profitable. It's generally more advantageous to play to the middle of the road and add elements that are going to be harder or easier. So, itch.io. I've said that a couple times. I know I showed you guys, but not really. If you come into itch.io, and you'll have to make an account for this, you can call it whatever. This is kind of my little gamer tag. You'll go to your dashboard, or you can just click upload new project, and you can create a new project, and you can do whatever you want. And when you come down, you can say 0 or donated or no payments. When it comes to uploading your files, you can upload your HTML5 builds. You can upload any of your builds. If you want it to be playable in the browser, it has to be the HTML5, and you have to zip the internal files, so like what I showed you here, only they'll be slightly different, and there'll be one that's like index.html5 or .html. Ooh. So, and you can build some pretty cool things, but even if you just make it like a downloadable game, like this one is only downloadable, you can do some cool things. So like you can fix your background, you can add screenshots, you can add instructions, install instructions, and then you can click a download button. So I like introducing people to itch.io only because it's a cool place to kind of, it's another way to build a portfolio, especially for those of you who maybe aren't artists and are looking for a place to showcase the kind of games you make. It's a great place to do that. So yeah, so there's all sorts of different ways to do it. This one's another one that's a download thing. Y'all saw, I think I showed you. Okay, so like this one is, this is a plain thing. It has nothing in it. Why aren't you working here? Okay, I'll fix you in a minute then. Okay, so you do work. So this is a plain, this is when you don't do anything to it, and it'll have just a run game button, and it'll tell you that it's built with Unity WebGL. And then you'll be able to play your game. Generally you have to click inside of it, but you'll be able to play whatever you want to do. So itch.io also has a lot of different other things. It's actually a good place for asset artists. So if you like building assets, whether that be sounds or other sorts of things, you can actually see there's a whole assets button. Pixel art, all sorts of things. Some of it is free, some of it is pay for. It's a cool place. Kenny is another one. So the one other thing that I wanted to talk about is, some of you have already done your watched the videos and done the article. Good job. It's easy to knock this one out really fast, so I always suggest it. The one other thing, inside of here I have this thing called resources. If you click this thing that says resources and free assets, right now this may not be as helpful for you, but for your 2D game and your 3D game, which you guys should start thinking about, this is a great place. It's got a bunch of different, so where to get sprites, where to get textures, where to get models, where to get sounds, some YouTubes, alternatives to Unity, which it is not all encompassing. Holy heck, it's not all encompassing. To be entirely honest, the two engines that I teach, or the two engine/libraries that I teach in game scripting that aren't even on here. But this is meant to give you some places that you can go find. The number one place that everybody really likes to use for sprites, and most of the stuff that I show you for examples will be from Kenny NL. 95% of his stuff is free, so you just have to come in and you'll go to assets, and some of them are 3D, some of them are 2D. You can switch. He has audio, he has UI, but he's got an amazing amount of stuff, and they're all free to use, and he'll tell you how he wants you to credit him, if he wants you to credit him. So license CC0 1.0, you're free to use these assets in any project, personal or commercial. There's no need to ask permission before using these. Giving attribution is not required. That means you technically don't have to say, hey, I got this stuff from Kenny. You can if you want, and that's great, but you don't have to. So just know that this is a great place, especially if this is kind of like the aesthetic that you're going for your games. I highly suggest them, because you know for sure that all of these are going to be free, but some of the other places, like open game art, some of the stuff is questionable as to whether it's free. If you're one of those people who likes making your own stuff, eventually what you'll end up doing is you'll have to make a sprite sheet. And well, I mean, you can do it individually, but sprite sheets is just always easier. I've given Draydon has a program called Stitches that will make the sprite sheet for you based on just like pushing the sprites to them. So that's pretty nice. So, and models, again, I'm not going to ask you to 3D model anything for this class, but if you want to, be my guest. This is just some examples of places for 3D models. Mixamo is also for humanoid rigging and animations, and it is free. It is an Adobe company, so if you're anti-Adobe, which I get, Mixamo may not be the best place for you, but it's there, and it's awesome, and it will be helpful for your 3D games. Sounds, Incompetech is always going to be my favorite place. It's my go-to place for music. That's Kevin MacLeod. If you've seen his stuff, he does really good stuff. So, yeah. I just wanted to let you guys know that this exists. It's here. It gets expanded every now and then. So, for next week, we will be starting to code. I'm sorry if that's really scary for some of y'all. I promise. No, for your 2D games, you can make anything you want under the sun. And that's kind of, if that is a scary thought, or you're like, I really just can't come up with an idea, my suggestion is to either look at game jams or find a video game name generator and make it generate a name for you. So basically what I am going to show you guys how to do as far as coding and everything goes is I'll show you how to move a character around in both like a top down and a side, but that can be translated to puzzle games, it can be translated to any number of things. Last semester I had people build like a Tetris kind of clone, a couple people built endless runners, somebody built a jumper. If you've ever played Doodle Jump, where like you automatically land and you kind of continue to jump, and depending on whether you press the left or the right, depends on whether you jump to the left or the right. Somebody built one of those. Of course, I have people who built like a zombie shoot 'em up. I had a couple top downs. I had somebody who tried to make an RPG, and you just don't have enough time to build something that's like really, really extravagant. You could try. More power to you. I will give you the basis for how to do that, but it's going to be up to you. In the same way, I won't show you how to make like really smart AI, just because that's not really in the scope of this game. So, or in this game, yeah, this class. But there's lots of examples and tutorials out there for how to make AI and how to make even stupid AI. But by what I tell you, you'll be able to say, hey, you walk 4 steps that way, then walk 4 steps that way. And that's going to be, yeah, you'll have dumb AI, but it's not the worst thing in the world, because basically this class is about getting the basics down. and AI gets, I mean, there's literally people who go to school for 8 years just to be able to build like actual legitimate AI. So yeah, your 2D games are going to be 100% open. There's a few things that you'll have to do, so we'll talk about that next week, but next week? Let me make sure. Yeah, so we'll talk about it next week, and then you'll have your game plans will be due on the 7th, which will be, I'll ask you to do a couple of different game plans, and you'll need 2 ideas, and that's so that we have, as a class, we can look at what everybody's kind of decided upon, and we can be like, yeah, that's going to be easy, or yeah, no, that's going to be hard, or which one seems like more fun to make. Also had people do visual novels last semester, to varying degrees of successfulness. I'm not as much of a huge fan of doing visual novels because that's pretty much like point and clicks are more. I like playing visual novels, but actually building a visual novel is repetitive, and I don't think it's the best use of your skills. But if that's what you want to do, as long as you can meet all of the requirements for what your 2D game is going to have to be, which if you come into the 2D game, you're required to have a start page with your name, instructions, multiple end conditions, and I'll reiterate this every time I mention this because it used to be that this says very specifically that it had to have a win and a lose condition, but with some games, so like an Endless Runner, there isn't so much a win and a lose condition. So maybe there's a you got this far, congrats, and you got even further, even more congrats. When I did mine, I did a number game, and it was built around caterpillars turning into butterflies, and the last kind of round, you had to answer as many math problems as you could. And so depending on how many math problems you answered in a 60-second time period depended on what kind of butterfly you got at the end. And that qualified as different end conditions. Because not every game is going to have a you win and you lose. Some of them it's going to always be you lose. And some of them it's going to always be you win. So on top of that, you'll have to have UI elements, an animation, particle effects, a restart replay, an exit option, and then credits. So I know this looks like a lot of text, but, and like I said, I do have a rubric, so you can actually see how things are going to break down as far as what I'm scoring on. So for the big projects, I have these. For the smaller projects, I don't. And if you're ever lost on how to like control or get things around in Unity, the basic Unity controls page, this has your basic stuff that you're going to want to use. I don't honestly remember play and exit like ever, even though it's just Control P. But some of them you'll remember as far as hotkeys go, some of them you won't. So co-op games on Unity, you can build them. Yeah, people build entire like MMOs on Unity. However, for this class specifically, building a 2-person controller so that like one person controls half of the keyboard and another person controls that, or setting it up to do long distance kind of stuff, that's way outside of our scope. That's I always suggest focusing on a 1-player thing for the time being. And if you look at even the game sim courses, most of them only ever build a 1-player game because building multiple players into a game just makes things infinitely more complicated. I can think of maybe one, maybe 2 that had multiples. Well, okay, so that's the thing with Unity though, is that online multiplayer is a lot easier because they've got a bunch of packages that you can just kind of throw up on Unity and it'll do it for you. So, but that being said, yeah, it's incredibly complicated. it's not or not beginner user friendly, so I always suggest one person. I had somebody build last semester a fighting game, or they tried to, and they ended up they spent a majority of their time trying to get it so that two people could fight with plants, and they ended up just throwing in a really dumb AI and having a one person game because it eats up so much time. And yeah, so develop your game. If you're eventually wanting to do a multiplayer, build your game as a one player game first and have an AI to play as your second character, and then you can build later so that, or expand upon it later so that it's doing good. Okay, so are there any questions? Questions about what's due? Again, the calendars button is your best friend. Inside of the calendar, you can even say, hey, I don't want to view certain things, so it'll like take things out for you. The calendar will tell you when absolutely everything is due for you. It'll tell you like what's been finished and what's done. So it's your best friend. Again, this class is jam-packed full of stuff that's due. I'm sorry. Not really, kind of. It's a lot of work. I've been there, I've done that. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work if you're also like working. So yeah, any questions, wants, desires, needs, hopes, dreams that I can help with? Okay, so if there are no questions, then class is over for today. The point for today is to use the rest of the time to build your Mario games, to work on your Mario games. Again, those aren't due until next week. But use this time wisely, whether that means for my class, for taking a nap because you need it, or for working on another class. Yeah, just use it wisely. Use it wisely. And I will pre-record the lecture that was meant to happen on Tuesday, and I'll post it up in the next couple days, and I'll let you guys know. And I will see you in a week on Thursday. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.